Hello and welcome to Third Eye Thinkers. I'm your host, Michelle Welch.
Hi, I'm your host, Megan Bonanti. Thanks for joining us today.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Okay, I say that. That's an automatic response.
Right.
I'm okay. It's been an interesting week with everything that's been going on. How have you been?
Same.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today with some of these like coping and wellness strategies. I mean, nobody ever wants to just cope, but sometimes that's what we have to do when there's a lot of things going on nationally or even internationally or in our own lives. You know, life can be really, really complicated.
Yeah, because a lot of times it's interesting because we'll ask somebody that question, how are you doing today? And we think, oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. And a lot of people talk about that, do you really answer the question? Do you really? And right now, there are a lot of people who really are just doing okay. They're coping. They're getting through some things. And I'm hearing a lot about that in my practice. I don't know if you are.
Oh, yeah.
And so it seems as though that it's okay. I guess the thing we were talking about in preparing for this show via text, right during the red zone of Mercury retrograde, we're texting about our show, which is interesting. But it was kind of like, oh, okay, do we want to thrive? Do we want to cope? And really, it's okay to just be sometimes.
Right.
And to just be in the moment and go, I am just okay.
Yeah. I mean, we couldn't agree on like what to call the show and via text. And I was like, this is so Mercury retrograde. But, because I didn't want to call it coping. And yet right now, that's what a lot of people are doing with the fires in California. I mean, this is tough stuff. People are losing their homes, their lives, the animals. Oh my gosh. You're seeing animals that have gotten burned because they're trying to get away. And there's just so much hard things that are happening. And we have to pull together to get through our daily lives, to work together as a community. There's a lot of people making sacrifices to help, all the firefighters and first aid people that are out there trying to help and, save lives and rescue animals and all of that.
It was interesting when Chiro was in town. We took Sasha and Chiro we gave a few choices of, some art museums or things like that. But Sasha had not been to Dallas before. We went to the JFK Museum, the 6th floor museum. And one of the things that really hit me, and it does every time I listen to JFK and you listen to his speeches, how much he spoke about service to others and how much I really believe, and as you were just saying, people pulling together and helping people and helping with the animals and things like that, how much that is something that every time I get down, and I do struggle with depression, I'll just be straight up with it. I'm not ashamed to talk about mental illness. I'm not ashamed to talk about depression. It's been a lifelong struggle for me from as long as I can remember. And one of the things that helps me the most is sometimes to get outside of myself and to help someone else. And it's sometimes hard to do because sometimes it's hard to get out of bed.
Right.
Right. But to actually just serve. And so listening to JFK when he says, just everything. And he was raised that way, to serve others and to do things for other people. And it really reminded me of how many things going into this holiday season that we can do for other people that really will make us feel better.
Right. Well, and that's also something, honestly, nowadays too, people who grew up with religion, much of religion is based on service to others. And so that's instilled in us. But then when we look at a lot of kids growing up now that aren't giving that religious basis, the level of service is changing. And so that's something we really need to consider and continue to bring in our lives, is that service to others matters. And it's not saying that you have to sacrifice all of your time or all of your money, but doing something. I know this past week I started back into a meditation practice, and I instantly got results. I mean, it hit me fast, and that was fantastic. But after we discussed what we wanted to talk about, I felt the need to meditate. And I thought, what can I do for these fires from here? And I thought, energetically, can I bring this down? Can I take this fire back into the earth, into the core, from an energetic standpoint? And, you know, with the idea of quantum physics and the fact that we're all, you know, connected and made up in, you know, if we're all made up of the same stuff, just in different forms. And, you know, that would mean that I do have some power. And I'm very into The Hidden Messages in Water by Dr. Emoto. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he's saying that everything is basically particles of water. Everything's made up of water. And you think about this fire, and it's drying things out. And the sky was drying out, and the wind currents are getting trapped. And, you know, I mean, there's been or the jet streams, a lot of things are kind of happening with that. But, you know, he talks about the power of prayer and how people can raise the vibration of an entire lake, like a polluted lake. And after all standing around it and praying, it can raise that up. And I thought, you know, what if we as a community got together and prayed and thought about bringing these fires down to a close, and so they burn, you know, they become contained and burn themselves out, or maybe perhaps the rains open up out of the skies. There's no reason to believe that we can't be influential in that. And that, I know to some people probably sounds crazy, because I'm, you know, one lonely person on a radio. But
not at all. That's the power of intention and of the collective working together.
Right. And to me, this is a collective effort.
I think that's true also with, and by the way, Megan and I don't believe either one of us watch the news much at all. It's not something we are just glued to the news,
no.
Right? We're not, for me, a lot of my knowing about things that are going on pop up through, I log on to my mail, and it's Yahoo, and then just Yahoo News pops up. So it's just right there in my face, and I see, oh, whoa, wow. How did I not know about this? So that's actually how the fires came up. We don't even have regular TV. So we have a TV, but we have the fire or whatever thing. I don't even know how to work it. You know, to be honest with you, Roger has to turn everything on.
Me. Yeah.
And he's afraid if I touch it all, it'll blow up, right?
Right.
With me touching anything, it blows up. And so I love that, because I think also with all these shootings, and it does seem that the shootings and the mass shootings are getting a little out of control. It seems like they are, people used to say, well, you know, because of the internet, we're hearing more things. We're hearing about all these things more often. Well, no, I think this is an issue where there are a lot more shootings going on, it seems to me, than there were before, just everywhere. I mean, used to, you know, when my daughter goes to UT, and when that mass shooting took place from the tower at UT, that's something we still know about. I mean, we took my stepson there, and he knew about it. He's like, where's the tower? But now there's shootings all the time, and this is something, I'll just share this. My daughter is in mock trial. I shared this with you, I believe, Megan, and she came pretty close to going to Pepperdine, and she knew wherever she went, she would be doing mock trial, more than likely. And one of the girls that was the victim of the Thousand Oaks shooting was a girl that was on the Pepperdine mock trial team. And so my daughter did contact me, and it did hit pretty close to home. She was like, Mom, you know, I almost went there. And it just, for some reason, and she was mock trial, and she said, you know, it's just, what do I do with this, Mom? She didn't say it in that way, but she was processing this issue of all these things that are going on. And that's kind of what raised this, not that everything in the world's going crazy, but I do think people are a little concerned with some of the things that are going on in the world, and how do we manage those emotions?
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I think collectively working on the fires, collectively calming down society, the rage perhaps in society. And we can do that with intention and prayer also.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I had found that I'd been in this really great place for a while. Life has been good to me, and I've learned a lot of skills. I'm really proud of where I'm at in my life. And so I'd been pretty happy. And I got some challenging news about some family stuff recently that I had to confront and deal with. And so, that also, it took the wind out of me. It was like getting punched in the chest, and that's okay. It doesn't mean it soured my whole life. It's that area, and that's an area that, as a family, we've got to work on, and I need to pay more attention to. And so to me, part of the way I'm doing that is the meditation and through the power of prayer. And it's also made me give more. And that was my immediate reaction, is like, okay, the best way to fix this is to give of myself. And, I'm by no means a saint. I have plenty of me time. But I needed to seek in a new direction, because whatever I was doing before clearly wasn't working. We ran into a pit stop, and it was like, okay, I've got to change. They say insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result. So, that's kind of how I came into being with this. And I found that the work I've done this week has been extremely helpful.
So when you meditate, could you just share a little bit of what that looks like for you? Because sometimes just a little short, this isn't all on meditation, but since you said that, and since that's helped you so much, maybe share with people listening or watching what that looks like for you.
Okay. So I listened to another podcast called The Spiritual Entrepreneur with Devi Aday. And she had a podcast recently that I was listening to, and it was on the power of meditation. And she said, pretty much everyone that she knows that's in balance starts their day with some form of meditation. And I was like, oh, okay, well, that's what I need to do that. Then I just was like, oh, bam, there we go. And for me, I use the Calm app. I don't necessarily need noise. In fact, I really like silence. But everybody in my neighborhood does mow their lawn on a different day, so there's usually some kind of noise around, or the dogs are barking. And that's when I'll use the app for that. They also have like a breathing cycle on it for people that like to follow the breath. But for me, I found that also even more of a distraction, because then I'm trying to stay in rhythm. But what's nice is it keeps a timer on it. And because I think a lot of times we get hung up that we need to meditate, for an hour, and that's great if you can do that. But I have a short attention span, and
Me too. Yeah.
I'm short on time. Like, if I can get 15, 20 minutes, that's great. But, sometimes I might just get 6 minutes, but that's better than nothing. It's recentering, it's refocusing, and it's just letting go. And so to me, take what you can get. If you can time it, that's helpful. So, and you can run your timer on your phone as well. But just get comfortable and quiet down and listen. And to me, that's what meditation is. It's the power of listening, unlike prayer, which is the power of asking. And I think they're both important and both vital, but sometimes we really need to receive. A lot to be said about the power of listening. Yeah. What do you do?
Well, I go in and out of my meditation practice. I'm going to be honest. Mm-hmm. There are some times that I will be better about meditating, and sometimes that I don't do it at all. Mm-hmm. So coming from a very Christian background, where they would call it quiet time, they didn't like the word meditation. I say they. Many people that I was raised with or that that taught me when I was growing up, Sunday school teachers, you would call it quiet time. But in basically any spiritual practice, this is encouraged.
Absolutely.
To have a time of quiet time with whatever it is that you believe in. So I do believe that it's very important. So mine looks very much like yours. It's not going to be an hour. If it's an hour, it's probably yoga. Me going and taking the time to do yoga, and that for some reason gets me in a meditative space, even though I am horrible at yoga. But that's why I like it, because they say it's your practice.
Right.
You're not competing with anyone else. It's your practice. And I can be not so flexible, not so balanced, and not so strong, or any of those on any certain day, and I'm okay, because it's my practice. It's where I'm supposed to be. But as far as the meditation, it's more very much just listening to something soothing to me. Very much. And actually, Megan, I'll tell you that you helped me in New York. You would take a moment before we would go down to our meetings, and with no music, no anything, and you would just sit on the side of your bed, very no mudras or anything like that, just sitting there quietly and closing your eyes and just centering yourself and meditating. And I could feel it. And so I've started doing that since then, a lot more, even before the show will start. You and I will both sometimes do that.
Oh, absolutely.
And you actually got me doing that more, because it doesn't always have to be this, okay, I have to do it in this certain way at this certain time. That helps you remember to do it.
Right.
But the fact that you just before we would go do anything, you would just take that, even if it was 3 minutes. That 3 minutes was much better than, oh, well, I need to meditate for an hour, and then we never do it.
Right. Yeah.
So I thank you for that, because I really have started doing it a lot more because
That's
of
great.
That.
Yeah.
And just taking those moments. I'd rather do a 3 minute, a 5 minute, sometimes for me, than the stress of going, oh no, I need to take an hour to meditate.
Yeah. Oh, sometimes it's like the instead of stop, drop, and roll, it's like stop, drop, and meditate. I take a moment even in a grocery line, because sometimes standing in line when you've got the slow checker can be really tedious. And for me, that's a time sometimes I just I look down and I'll close my eyes and go inward, because really nobody's going to be paying attention to me anyway. But I just need that moment to breathe and to kind of shut the world out. You know, another thing I did this week, I had some really good success. Michelle has been teaching this crystal class, and so she's been doing these crystal grids. Is that what you call it? And a friend of mine that has been taking her class offered to do one for me in a situation that I was in, and for my family. And I was kind of shocked, but literally it caused some change in thinking. And I was like, oh, wow, that's powerful. And, and I try not to get too into a lot of super mystical stuff, but this really worked. And so I went and made a grid on Monday for some stuff, for some other things that my family was going through that I felt needed some support and protection around. And maybe those of you that work with crystals, and I didn't know anything about a grid. I went on YouTube and found out with in a minute and 30 seconds. And that was pretty darn good for my minute and 30 seconds. But, feel free to build a grid around these fires. It might be bringing in jaspers and some of those cool watercolors, or it might be bringing in earth colors, was it black moonstone or petrified wood? So that, you're bringing that back down into the earth, because, we've got that fire in our core. So, and you can always put out fire with the dirt. So bringing in some of that earth energy could also work.
Right. I'm glad you're doing the grids.
Yeah, just kind of, hey, when in Rome. It just
I don't think they're
felt
super
like the right
I don't
thing to
even
do.
think they're that super mystical, really, because all it is it's setting an intention. It's helping you realize, well, first of all, crystals have pretty high vibration, just like the plants. So you're setting an intention with those grids. When I do the grids, and I teach about the grids, I go through all the things that people teach and books and all those things, and then I cull it down to pretty much do whatever you want, but don't interfere with anyone else's free will. And so you can add in nature with yours. You could probably make some really beautiful ones with, you know, the flowers and all those things.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful grids. And then always take pictures because they're wonderful. But another thing I was thinking is sometimes I will, when you were talking about the fires, I'll go down the toll road. And I posted this one time. I was like, the toll road, when they were doing all the construction, I was like, let's bring healing to the toll road. And so I posted it on Facebook, and everybody not everybody, a lot of people jumped on board. And I was like, so when we're on the toll road, just send out healing to the toll road. And literally it works. It really does work. I'm not just saying that you're not gonna have some issues, but I went through a phase where literally it felt like every other day I was seeing a major wreck on the toll road, like a major potentially, maybe not every other day, but a lot of fatalities. And this was about a year ago, and I posted it, and it was pretty interesting. So the power of all those people getting together to say, okay, come on, toll road. You are a being. You're a living, breathing being with all these people going up and down your road. Let's bring some hope to you and some clearing to this. So I think what we're trying to say is pretty much we can be in a space where we're coping, but there is always going to be hope. In most every situation, I think we can find something to find some hope in there.
Yeah.
Just like whatever you're going through with your family, we're going through some things with our family. And the same thing, we're going to find the hope of how can we improve on this and what can we learn from it.
Yeah. So, don't give up, and don't be afraid to reach out to others in regard to asking for prayer or guidance and connecting with a collective group, whether that's through meditation or prayer or your church or whatever works for you. There's a lot available out there.
Right. I will say one thing on the grids. I have things on Soultopia, on Michelle Soultopia on grids. So check that one out too.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I'm so sorry.
No. I was just saying I've recorded a lot of them. So they're actually pretty good on the grids. I don't know if they're 1:30, but
probably longer is better.
Maybe not so long, but yeah, I'm glad you're doing those. The one thing I was going to ask you, Megan, is you have a really good way of maintaining a positivity through trying circumstances. So where do you think that resolve and strength comes from for you?
I'm a sun wheel magician. No, I think part of that's my sun card. But, I guess when you survive a lot, you just don't take things for granted. And fun is actually a really important part of my life, because I think that's how I look for the joy in things. Because if I didn't, I would probably be in a really bad place. And I have lived a lot of life in some really dark places. Certainly had my share of depression. I don't have that struggle anymore, but I stay on a medication at this point. I don't know. That's part of who I am, is I really seek out the positive in a situation. I don't know why I'm that way.
No, I do think you've been through a lot, or you're a survivor of a lot of things that gets thrown around a lot, but I think you are. And and you're fun to be around.
Thank you.
You actually
Thank
are.
you.
I brought a crystal for today. I brought an ocean jasper. It's interesting because you mentioned jasper earlier. Yep. And so the interesting, this is actually a really big, if y'all can see it.
They can. I'm sorry. We're having a little trouble with our TVs today, but it is on stream.
Okay. So those of you watching, it's a really beautiful picture of jasper that has all different colors in it. And the piece that is showing, it may look little, but it's not. I meant to bring it today. I just didn't have time. It's rather large. So even if you're seeing it, it's bigger than it looks on that picture. Now, the thing about ocean jasper is, what do you think of? You think of water. Mm-hmm. But really, jasper has very much to do with earth elements Yes, because jaspers are supreme nurturers. So even though it's called the ocean jasper, it's very much about the earth elements. And it was interesting how you said you could use the dirt for the fire, and it's also the water. And so it's so interesting what you said earlier. So listen back, you guys. I'm going to rewind on this part and listen to what you said, because that's so intuitive, that ties into the ocean jasper and talking about the fires. And that could also be fires in our lives, things that are going on that we need to calm down or cool down. Ocean jasper brings that calm and serenity to a situation where we may feel like there's no hope. It'll bring us hope into that situation.
Yeah. Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, maybe I'm psychic. Hey.
Yeah, maybe just a tiny. No, a lot. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So that's really, I don't need to say much more about it, because that ocean jasper, and it was interesting because I was like, now what? Come on, why'd y'all call it ocean jasper? Well, it has those beautiful colors.
It's got a rainbow of colors.
So it's got this rainbow, beautiful, the blues, but it also has the browns. So it's tied to many of the elements. But really, it's not so tied to the fire element. It's tied to those elements of really earth and water that would temper the fire.
That's awesome. And I've seen that particular piece of jasper in her store. It's big and beautiful. It's a very powerful piece.
Really pretty piece, yeah.
Okay, and for plants today, we had our first freeze last night. So to me, this is, rather than one specific plant, it's time to bring your plants in and to, again, be that supreme nurturer for your plants. So I'm sure a lot of people have brought their plants into their garage or into their sunrooms. I know I certainly gathered up mine, the ones that I wanted to save. Came out this morning. Many plants have, frozen and wilted, and they look very sad. And for me, it's always really important to go in and clean up any of the perennials that have bit it after the first freeze, because it feels like death to me, the death of my plants and my garden. And there's still a lot alive and a lot that's going on there, but I do want to kind of collect all that soggy, saggy leaves and compost it. So for the plants you brought in, remember you're adding oxygen to your house and you're creating a sense of tranquility. And all of that is going to be creating calm in your life. That to me, although it increases oxygen, it is fighting fires with a sense of cooling down. And it's going to be cleaning out any formaldehyde or chemicals that are in your home, because of course in the winter you're running your heat now, so there's that first, especially the first time you run your heater, the dust that comes through and the smell of burning dust. And so there's going to be a lot of extra toxins and dust that builds up in wintertime. So keep your plants inside, make sure you're watering them, and don't forget to dust them off. When your plants build dust on them, they're building up stagnation, and whether that's in the corner of your house or in the center of the room. And so remember to kind of dust those guys off, or run them under the faucet in the bathtub and kind of clean them up. I always think that's really important, and it really does make your house feel more alive. Dusty plants definitely feels like decay to me.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
Yeah. All right.
Do we have time?
Okay, yeah. Let's do a couple quick readings here. We've got our Charming Dead Oracles from Carrie Paris, but I had to add to that because I got the charm bug now, and I had to go and order some more. So, Michelle, why don't you pull 2 out of there without looking, and then I will shuffle. And I have Chiro's deck. This is the Gilded Tarot. All right, so she pulled a winter coat, very appropriate, and not quite a Hamsa. Well, I guess it's a Hamsa. It's a third eye in a hand, but it's very realistic. It's not the traditional Hamsa shape, which is very balanced. So it's very humanoid. So you'll either pick the hand with a third eye, if this is your first time, or you'll pick this wonderful winter fur coat. And it's got a nice little swing coat to it. So whatever you feel compelled speaks to you today. choose one of those charms, and I'm going to lay out the cards here for us. All right, so if you picked the coat, the cards are Three of Cups and Justice in reverse.
And this deck is?
This is the Gilded Tarot by Ciro Marchetti, who was with us last week. And I've really enjoyed pulling this deck back out and just diving right into it.
All right.
Okay, so first off, I'm kind of getting with the coat. Did you have something? Do you want to go first? Okay. I felt like you were still working on it. You know, it's cold, and the idea of getting warmth and protection. But I will say this coat also brings in fun. It's swinging around. It's very alive. And then we have this Three of Cups with these dancing girls and in primary colors. So a lot of vibrancy and a lot of joy that's coming out in this. So there is a focus on having fun this week. And that might be part of a coping skill for you if you pick the coat. Despite the imbalances and the injustices that are happening in the world. And this justice is blindfolded, so she really doesn't have a clear vision. And we've got the planet Mars behind her. And so, you know, that's warlike, that is shootings, that is fire. And so she's kind of blinded by all this, and perhaps, you know, you're feeling that inequality. And so for you, dealing with it, with having fun, maybe drinking, maybe socializing, all of those things can be important in protecting yourself.
It's interesting what you said about the Justice card and how that ties into the shootings and the fire and those things, and the fact that she's blindfolded. You know, when I think about justice being blind, I think about that as an attorney. I always go back to the fact of that being that you have the blinders on so that you can be just. Okay. So I'm trying to, and for some reason that's coming up to me today of why, you know, there's blinders on, and even though these things are unjust, and it's reversed, right?
Yes.
And so it feels unjust, but yet many things happen. It's almost like there's no socioeconomic boundaries. There's no demographic boundaries. It knows no color, no religion. It's when there's these catastrophic happenings happen, like as far as fires, it's almost like it is blind, and it makes us realize that this could happen to any of us. And so, not to be depressing about it, but it could. You know, we put ourselves in the situation of knowing, you know, life is fragile. And it is to be celebrated. And let's, you know, do have fun and do have joy. And it's okay. You know, somebody told me one time, it was actually a preacher. And it was one time, and I think I've said this before, when I was in one of my particularly low points and I was getting some help from a counselor. And he had to call me and tell me that one of my really good friends had committed suicide. And she drove her car into an embankment off of where they were building 190. And I was like, well, then who am I to say how upset I am about things that are going on in my life? And I will never forget, he said, you know, it is your struggle. Don't minimize what you're going through just because someone else is going through something that you may perceive as strong or bigger than what you're going through. You're dealt what you're dealing with today. And I feel like that this is where I'm drawn to with this justice being reversed, is that we should enjoy and celebrate our lives and know that it's okay to do that, even though other people may be having a struggle. It's a balance of doing that. Does that make sense? It's okay to celebrate and to enjoy this holiday season and things coming up, and we don't need to get down about everything. We need to celebrate our life as it is, and the moments that we do have joy, and all those things that are helping us cope and helping us have joy in life, and know that we don't have to go, oh no, I can't be happy because look at all the unhappiness in the world.
Right.
We can.
Yeah, no, that was beautifully said. So with our other one, the hand with the eye in the center, we've got 9 of Swords in reverse and then 7 of Cups direct. And the first thing I'm kind of picking up with this is it's time to rest. It's time to look inward rather than outward. Somebody here is really focused on their visions and goals, and not to be distracted from what's going on outside. But the person who picked the hand with the eye is really looking towards kind of their own evolution. And I feel like this process has been something they've been working on for a while, and they're going to continue to grow in this. And I feel like this reading is going to carry in for them through, up into mid-January, actually, because there's so much focus on personal growth, and not so much about career, although it can tie into your career, but it's how you're dealing with things personally. What's your take on that?
Kind of to build on that, it feels as though I like the internal and the external that you spoke of. I feel like there might be, if you chose this card, there may be some things that you have really great visions and ideas of what you want to do, but some of your self-imposed fears are holding you back. That's where you feel like, the hand, it's like kind of that, the Hamza. I don't know a lot about it, so I'm going to just intuitively what I get on that. Some protection. You feel you need protection a lot, and a lot of times if you chose this, it's like you go to the protection, and I need protection. Instead of going to, again, the joy of living and the vision of what you have, sometimes you're overanalyzing and stuck in the fears of what could go wrong and what might happen if I step out in faith and go for some of these ideas and some of these things that I want to do. There's a lot going on with these cards.
Yeah.
But I love how you said, Megan, the external and the internal, because with this Nine of Swords reversed, none of those swords are touching her. They're all in her head, and so those potentially they may, but I'm getting a lot of them are your self-imposed fears, or our self-imposed fears that hold us back from all the wonderful things that we could accomplish and all the great ideas that we have, but we have that fear.
Yeah, and it's acknowledging that, and then being able to move on and find your strength through that.
And and that you are protected, and you are being held in a hand of protection. It almost feels like, in the tarot, in the aces, where the hand of God comes through and and is holding you in the hand. So just, feel protected and go ahead and step out and start maybe small, but one at a time, do those things that you're dreaming about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Well, guys, we really appreciate you listening today. You've been listening to Third Eye Thinkers with Michelle Welch and Megan Benanti. If you've enjoyed our show, please give us a 5-star review and subscribe to Third Eye Thinkers on any of the podcast networks or on YouTube. We're produced by Real News Communications Network, and we want to give a special thanks to our producer, Matt Stoker, and our social media assistant, Cassie Clayton. Thanks for joining us, and keep Third Eye Thinking.